Kemi stood in the middle of her living room, heart pounding in her chest. Toys lay scattered across the floor. Shoes were tossed in every corner, and the walls seemed to vibrate with the sound of her children's shouts. Oluwatoyin, 6 years old, clung to a stuffed bear, while Fola, 3, wailed for his turn to play with it. In the kitchen, a pot boiled over onto the stove. The messy smell of burnt food filled the small apartment, mixing with the cries of hungry children. Kemi felt trapped, as though the walls were closing in. She struggled to keep her voice calm, but a shaky feeling rose inside her. The chaos pressed against her like a heavy weight, and a single thought tore through her mind. I can't keep doing this. I'm failing them. I'm failing everything. The day had started well enough. Kemi woke up early to prepare breakfast and set up her work laptop at the tiny dining table. But she got less than an hour of focused work before her children woke up. Once they were out of bed, any sense of order dissolved into a swirl of spilled cereal, cartoons blaring on TV, and overlapping chatter. Kemi worked from home as a data analyst. She had an urgent project to finish, a project that could make or break her reputation at the company. Yet, she also had 2 young children who needed her attention every second. There were endless fights to break up, meals to cook, clothes to wash, and errands to run. The constant multitasking made her mind feel ragged and raw. That night, after she finally tucked the children into bed, Kemi sank into the couch. The apartment was silent for once, but her thoughts still buzzed. She picked up an old parenting book she had inherited from her grandmother. Its edges were frayed, and the cover was faded. Although her grandmother had passed on years ago, Kemi felt comfort in holding something that reminded her of her. She opened the book, hoping to find a solution to her daily struggle. Instead, as she flipped through the pages, she heard a soft voice drift through the quiet air. "You are not alone." She jumped, nearly dropping the book. She stared around her living room, heart racing. No one was there. The children were asleep. The lights were dim, and she knew she must be exhausted, perhaps even dreaming. But the voice spoke again, its tone gentle and warm. "Kemi, your struggles are heard. Have courage." She slammed the book shut, her hands trembling. She told herself it was just her imagination, a trick of a tired mind. But that strange comfort stayed with her, like a blanket wrapped around her heart. The next day was Saturday. Kemi decided to spend a little time outdoors to clear her head. She took the children out to a small garden behind their apartment building. While Oluwatoyin and Fola played tag, she wandered near a row of bright flowers. For a moment, the fresh air and the sound of giggles helped her relax. Suddenly, she felt a soft breeze brush across her shoulders. Turning around, she froze. She could see an elderly woman standing a few steps away, watching her kindly. The woman had the same gentle glow Kemi's grandmother once had in the old photographs. There was no real explanation for why she was there or why she seemed so familiar. The woman didn't speak, yet somehow Kemi sensed her thoughts. It was like a silent whisper flowing straight into her mind. "You carry the strength of those who came before you, Kemi." Her eyes widened. She tried to speak, but no words formed. She only felt an odd mix of calm and awe. Then, just as quickly as she had appeared, the woman was gone. There were no footsteps, no fading outline, only a sudden emptiness. Kemi looked around, half wondering if someone would confirm what she'd just seen, but her children were too busy chasing each other, laughing. No one seemed to notice the mysterious visitor. Despite the confusion, a spark of hope flickered inside Kemi. She felt lighter, as if someone had lifted a burden off her back. Her thoughts settled, and for the first time in weeks, she took a long, steady breath. That night, Kemi tried a different approach with her children. Instead of focusing on how much work she had to finish, she sat down on the living room floor with them. She watched Fola scribble on a piece of paper and listened to Oluwatoyin talk about her daydreams of becoming a singer. In that simple moment, Kemi realized how fast her children were growing and how many precious details she missed when she was too lost in worry. She didn't suddenly forget her obligations. The undone tasks still hovered in her mind. But being present with her kids brought a warm energy to the room, a gentle sense of belonging. When the children started to argue over a crayon, Kemi intervened calmly. She guided them to share instead of grabbing at each other's things. Although it took a few tries, they eventually stopped snapping at each other. The arguments ended quicker than usual, and neither child melted down in tears. Kemi felt a small triumph. Being fully there, patience in place of panic, made a difference she could actually see. Later that week, as the children napped, Kemi returned to her grandmother's parenting book. She ran her hand across its worn spine. Even if that mysterious voice was just a figment of her imagination, maybe the book still held wisdom. When she opened it, a sudden warmth passed through her arms. She could almost feel her grandmother's presence. Her grandmother had raised 5 children on a modest income. She had faced hardships, but she always carried herself with dignity and compassion. As if on cue, that same gentle whisper filled Kemi's mind. "Your love is enough, child. Do not fear your imperfections." Tears burned in Kemi's eyes. She didn't see the woman this time, but the words sank in. All her life, Kemi had feared failing her kids. She worried they would remember her outbursts or her stress rather than her love. Now she began to suspect that the best gift she could offer them was simply herself, flaws and all. Over the next few days, Kemi tested this new mindset. Instead of dwelling on the spilled juice or missing puzzle pieces, she guided her children to help clean up. When it was time for her to focus on work, she told them gently but firmly that she needed a short period of quiet. She set them up with simple activities, coloring books, toys, a few children's songs, and reminded them that once she finished a bit of work, she would play with them again. It wasn't perfect. Fola still threw tantrums when he couldn't have a snack right away. Oluwatoyin still tried to boss her brother around, but Kemi found that she herself stayed calmer and more patient, and this seemed to rub off on the kids. They fought less, listened more, and became proud when they helped fold laundry or clear dishes from the table. One afternoon, Kemi noticed that while she took a phone call for work, the children were sharing crayons without fussing. Oluwatoyin even helped Fola put the lids back on the markers. A few weeks ago, that scene would have felt impossible. Now it felt like a gentle step toward a more balanced life. Toward the end of the month, Kemi was on the brink of finishing her big work project. The children were in bed, and the apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. She turned off her laptop, stretched her arms above her head, and let out a long sigh of relief. She had survived the toughest deadline she'd ever faced, and somehow managed to keep her children feeling loved in the process. She walked into the dark hallway, heading for her bedroom. Halfway there, she sensed a presence behind her. The hairs on her arms stood up. She turned around, expecting to see nothing. Instead, she saw the same elderly figure from the garden. The woman's eyes shone with tenderness. Though she never opened her mouth, Kemi heard her words deep inside. "You have learned to be present. Now, pass that strength on to your children." Kemi didn't feel fear this time. She felt gratitude. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the peace that radiated through the hall. When she opened them, the spirit was gone. Yet Kemi felt no sadness. She sensed the moment had come full circle, and she was ready to continue her journey on her own. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and Kemi woke up feeling rested. The children ran into her room, giggling as they jumped onto the bed. She laughed, pulling them both into a playful hug. Together, they prepared breakfast, each child helping in small ways. Oluwatoyin stirred pancake batter, while Fola placed napkins on the table. Now and then, they teased each other, but there were no tears, no screaming, just normal family chatter. In that ordinary moment, Kemi realized that although parenting would always be challenging, she no longer felt like she was drowning. She had found a calmer rhythm. Later that day, Kemi's mother, Mrs. Oluwason, dropped by. She noticed how Kemi smiled more and how the children seemed more content. Over a cup of tea, she gently touched Kemi's hand. "You seem so at peace these days," Mrs. Oluwason said, her voice quiet. "I can see it in your face." Kemi nodded. She could have explained the whisper, the fleeting visions, or how the family's ancestors seemed to guide her. But she sensed her mother already understood. Instead, Kemi simply said, "I've realized I don't have to be perfect. I only need to be present for my children. Everything else flows from there." Her mother squeezed her hand and smiled with pride. "Your grandmother would be so happy to see this." That evening, after her mother went home, Kemi stepped outside to watch the sunset. She breathed in the cool air, thinking about how far she had come in such a short time. She remembered her first days of panic and self-doubt, the nights where guilt gnawed at her. Now she felt a sense of hope. She could still hear her children giggling inside the apartment, and though she knew life wouldn't be perfect, she felt ready to face each challenge. Looking out at the horizon, she thought of the ancestors. She pictured the wise spirit and felt the echo of that gentle voice. "You carry our strength, pass it on." She had taken those words into her heart. She had acted on them, choosing patience over anger, closeness over distance, and love over fear. That was what mattered. Kemi returned to the living room where the children had laid out puzzles and colouring books. Fola ran to her, holding up a scribbled drawing of a family. She noticed 3 stick figures labelled Mummy, Me, and Sister. "Mummy, I drew this for you," Fola said with a shy smile. Oluwatoyin beamed, pointing to her own drawing of flowers and a bright sun. Kemi's eyes moistened as she admired their efforts. She knelt down, wrapping both children in a gentle hug. In that embrace, she felt the weight of all she had learned, that parenting was a journey made up of small moments, both chaotic and tender. The noise would come and go, the chores would pile up, and the deadlines would return. But within all that mess, there was room for love, connection, and growth. Kemi whispered, "Thank you for being patient with me." Whether the children fully understood or not, they each tightened their arms around her and giggled. As she held her children close, she remembered the silent whisper that first guided her. She remembered feeling lost, hearing that gentle voice in the hush of an evening, and encountering the spirit in the garden. Now, all of it made sense. She was not alone and never had been. She carried the legacy of her family's love, the strength of her ancestors' wisdom, and the joy that came from caring for her little ones with a full heart. With a calm smile, Kemi rose to her feet. In the soft glow of the living room lamp, she saw her children happily chat about what they would do tomorrow. She knew there would be more tears, more squabbles, and plenty of mistakes along the way. But she also knew that amid all the noise and daily struggles, a quiet power lived inside her. The power of presence, love, and hope. And so, with her children by her side, Kemi walked forward, ready to face each day with renewed faith in herself and in the guiding whispers that had led her there. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more exciting stories from the heart of Africa.